Thank you, Hawaii Asia Review. This is Johnson Choi of Hong Kong, China, Hawaii Chamber of Commerce. I'm the host today. Today we have a very special guest, Dean Chuck YG. He was born in San Francisco. He left home when he was 17 years old, drafted into the Korean War, and using his GI Bill after the war, attended the City College of San Francisco, then to U of Denver under the GI Bill, and subsequently to Michigan State University. He was the manager for the gas ranch, a 45,000-acre ranch for 2 seasons between U of Denver and U of Michigan. In 1965-66, Dean G was hired by the UH College of Tropical Agriculture as a visiting professor. And he also teach hospitality and tourism management under Dr. Ed Barnett. Ed Barnett wanted to transfer the school from just hospitality and tourism to the School of Travel Industry Management. In 1967, Dr. Barnett offered the associate deanship to Dr. Chuck G, and also with a full professorship. At this time, I would like to introduce Dean G and like him to talk a little bit about his first exposure to Asia during the 66 and 67. Chuck G.
First, let me thank you by inviting me to this show and giving me a chance to share a little bit of what I know about Asia Pacific, and especially about tourism, which is my field. As you mentioned, I came here in 66, 67 as actually 65, 66 as a visiting professor from the University of Denver, where I had already worked for some 10 years. And so this coming to Hawaii gave me this enormous opportunity because tourism was just taking off in Hawaii with the introduction of the jumbo jets. And it was on the base of tourism and its rapid development in Hawaii that actually opened the doors to Asia and the Pacific. Initially through an organization known as the Pacific Asia Travel Association, then concurrently with East-West Center, which had a huge investment in education, food, agriculture, safety, population growth, and so forth. So tourism was part of that picture through East-West Center as well. And then further on, also the Asia Productivity Organization. When I came here, tourism was not yet an industry in Asia Pacific. So I didn't have much of a chance to visit these countries or do anything. But my first assignment, which came a year before I could actually assume the job, I had already resigned my position at the University of Denver. And East-West Center and Asian Productive Organization said, we would like you to take on a really big project. And this project was talking about tourism development in countries that really needed the foreign exchange. And so that first assignment included Nepal in South Asia, and which today still remains a country with economic difficulties and not too many assets in terms of natural resources beyond scenery and tourism, to Thailand and Taiwan. All these countries were in a developing state, and I had a chance to talk to a lot of people, meet with government officials, and so on, to find out what their interests. At that time, we were really groping around. Nobody really knew what we were talking about, so to speak. I mean, the distances were so vast. And I had read a report before in preparation to coming to Hawaii and taking on these assignments. I read a report that was called the Checky Report, which was commissioned by the United States Department of Commerce. The total movements in Asia Pacific was no more than 500,000 of inbound visitors to these countries. So that meant a huge opportunity for tourism growth. But you don't have tourism unless you also have infrastructure, air transportation, government facilitation, which includes making it easier for people to go from one country to the next. But you also have concerns like internal security and so forth, and control over currencies. I think I probably learned a lot myself. I learned probably more than I taught by just going to these countries and seeing them at different states of development and really seeing how much politics have to do with success, and the need for investments. And,
Actually, in the 60s, I guess, one of the places that probably that need the help on the tourism development was China, but China was just through the Cultural Revolution between 66 and 76.
Yes.
And I guess during that period of time, you did work with some major investor in Asia, in Hong Kong and other places. Can you share with us some of your experience?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share that experience, because that was the one experience that maybe opened Hawaii to China, or China to Hawaii. As you know, in 1976, when after then President Nixon signed the Shanghai Communique to open the China doors, there were a lot of interest. Everybody wanted to go to China, but you could only go if you were invited by the state, and you needed connections. The Chinese famous thing about having connections. Well, I had those connections in Hong Kong. And so that first group, led by Mr. Y.L.O. Yang, had some $3 billion worth of $3 billion US dollars to invest in China.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, it was. You can imagine that $3 billion would be like about $10 billion today.
Probably more.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to build a large number of hotels. But he brought in, the Hyatt Group, Larry Chu, who was then the vice president for Asia Pacific, and Brian Bryce, who was president of Asia Pacific for Hyatt International, and George Chow, the guy who built the Hong Kong Tunnel, I.M. Pei, the world famous, architect. And so I traveled with this very distinguished group, and they said I could bring a guest. And I invited the chancellor, who was Doug Yamamura then, said, no, if you're really smart, you will invite the president. Okay. Because he says, if we make any decisions, it will have to be the president that does that. And so I invited Fletch Matsuda and his wife, Amy. And so our little group and a team of lawyers and other investors from the East Coast all went to China looking at different sites. Everything was new. And the whole premise of my being there was first educated to be invited. There were two reasons why I was invited. Because first of all, the subject was about tourism, and China was not interested in tourism for its own sake, but they recognized that to have internal growth, eventually develop an economy, they would need infrastructure. Well, tourism does provide the infrastructure. You build hotels, you build your transportation systems. Whereas everything you need for tourism is also necessary for doing any kind of business. And so that was number one reason. It was the field itself. The number two reason was basically because China was very apprehensive about the rest of the world. They still remember the late 1800s, all the way to the 1920s, 1930s, when it was exploited. At least they felt they were being exploited by other countries.
Actually, even today, Xi Jinping often bring about the humiliation of the last century.
Yes,
so,
yes. And I've not been, just coincidentally happened to be a Chinese dean, I probably wouldn't have been invited. Yeah. Because they, Chinese, we say about the guanxi, the relationship thing,
yes.
Right? Yeah, blood is thicker than
even
water.
Today it's the same. I mean, you're looking for the relationship, the ties, and looking for overseas Chinese, trying to help the motherland.
Oh, yes. And that was I heard some conversation about, how China's economy developed, and, they did it all by themselves and so on. Well, basically they did not do it all by themselves. There was a lot of transfer of technology and expertise, but China could still say was only as long as they were Chinese. whether it was Chinese from Taiwan, Chinese from Singapore, or or from the United States. And in Hawaii, that Chinese connection still remains a very valuable one in our relationships with China. And we have so many of these sister cities, state, provincial connections. Although I'm not really sure that we are making as much use of those connections as we should be. But again, that's another matter.
Yeah, the rule have changed quite a bit
Yeah.
regarding to those, but we do have a lot of graduates working in major multi-hotel chains
Yes.
and development managers
Yes.
for major hotel chains in China.
Sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
through this friendship, actually create a huge network
Yes.
for the state of Hawaii
Yes.
we can rely on from
Yes.
time to time
Yes.
to help us to plan the logistics locally.
Yes.
That's so much needed.
Oh, yeah, and those connections remain extremely important. Initially, because the students that we got from Asia were from English-speaking parts of
Right.
Asia, right? So Singapore and
Hong
Hong
Kong.
Kong were the two main sources of foreign students
Back in the
TU.
70s, I
Right.
remember. Yeah.
Of course, now today, the largest enrollment, at least in the graduate program at the School of Travel and Leisure Management, would be from China.
From China
Looking for
or South
advanced
Korea.
degrees.
Yeah,
South Korea, Japan.
yeah.
Japan never needed to look at tourism. In fact, Japan was known as the one-way tourism country, only outbound from Japan to other countries. But with the economy as dismal as it is there, their economy is projected to only grow, say, 0.5%. Even as ours has slowed down a little bit from, that the IMF just recently predicted that we would drop from 2.6% growth to 2.4%. China's been actually elevated. While it is true that it is not growing at the double-digit level as it did all the way up to 2010, it is still a very healthy, by other comparative standards, from going from 6.3 to elevated to 6.5. So 2.5 times of our growth. And so, but that is because China has embarked on a very different economic model. As you know, when I first went into China, it was all about manufacturing, about building up inventory of natural resources, so in steel, in concrete, in coal, in oil, all natural resources, copper, rare earth. So these were things that China was buying from other countries. They had some of their own, and they began building up these huge reserves of natural commodities in order to invest into property development. That part of the economy was more than 50 to 60% of China's economy in those early years. Well, as you know, since 2009, 2010, there has been a major shift. That is now, that part of the economy is now less than half. What is growing? It is services. And that is because China has always relied on their 5-year development plans, and that third plenarian, the third 5-year plan, they have said, we are going to be moving our economy away from property and commodities and manufacturing.
And then low-end manufacturing.
And state-owned enterprises into services and consumption.
And technology.
And technology, the third area. So the 3 areas that for the future that China's looking at has to do with, first of all, services, which is growing 3 times faster than any of the manufacturing things that the things that were done by the state-owned enterprises. The consumption, which has been rising steadily, and third area is technology.
When you talk about the outbound tourists by Chinese going to outside of China, I recently read a report that Abe, Japan, initial had a 20 million visitor target for 2020. Now he have to revise it up to 40 million.
Yes.
Because of the huge number.
Yes.
Hong Kong is also a good example. Now has about 40 million
Yes.
Chinese visitor, and Taiwan actually also benefited
Oh, yeah.
from the
I
huge
mean,
infrastructure.
roughly, Taiwan now attracts, I've been advisor to the Taiwan government, oh God, from the time I was in the late 60s. One of the countries I visited that we began by training, almost in those, say, going back to the decade of the 80s and 90s, almost every NTO, it was National Tourism Organization or officers, were trained through East-West Center and TIM. Taiwan had a very low visitor count. I think it took years and years to finally get up to the 2-3 million level. Today it has about 10 million visitors, but 7 million are from mainland China.
Yeah, the old days, you have a lot of visitors from Japan, basically.
That's right.
But then when China and Taiwan relationship warm up,
yes,
just like they did it to Hong Kong, they start sending more tourists.
Yes.
And actually, it was started out when Taiwan allowed a lot of the old military people who retreated from China to Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
They could go back home to China
Yes.
to visit the ancestry home and stuff like that.
Yes.
And that relationship started to warm up. And
well, this is what I mean about politics.
It's politics.
In
Asia,
when there's liberalization of political policies, of national policies about facilitation and allowing foreign investment to go into a country. I mean, the most of the investment money out of Taiwan has gone into mainland China because, first of all, they share a common language. There's slight differences in the Mandarin.
Okay,
but,
Dingy, we're going to a break right now, so we're going to come back.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Aloha, my name is Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I'm the host of Sustainable Hawaii at thinktechhawaii.com. We air live on the internet and also on Oceanic Channel 16. I'd invite you to come for a fresh new show every Tuesday from 12 to 1 o'clock. I try to bring on guests that give us a different viewpoint on aspects of sustainability in Hawaii, as well as trying to unpack some of the difficult concepts of measuring and achieving sustainability, particularly with regard to sustainable economic growth and prosperity in Hawaii. Please join us every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. Mahalo, aloha.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, and I host Condo Insider. We talk about issues facing the condo association throughout Hawaii and talk about solutions. When you think about it, about 1/3 of our population lives in some form of common interest real estate. We broadcast every Thursday at 3 p.m. Please tune in and thank you. Aloha.
Aloha, this is Maria Mera, and I'm here to invite you to my bilingual show, Viva Hawaii on Think Tech Hawaii, every other Monday at 3 p.m. We're here to inform, motivate, and entertain you. Join us. Hola, soy María Mera y estoy aquí para invitaros a mi show bilingüe Viva Hawaii en Think Tech Hawaii cada 2 lunes a las 3 de la tarde. Estamos aquí para informaros, motivaros y entreteneros. Apuntaros.
Welcome back to Think Tech Hawaii Asian Review. I'm Johnson Choi, the host, and today's guest is Chuck Im-Ji. Before we went to the break, we were talking about tourism in Asia, and like Dingy said, a lot of time you also deal with politics, whether the country is stable or whether the relationship between the two countries are in good terms. Like currently, there are some challenges between like Taiwan and China. So the report said the tourism to Taiwan now is down about 30 to 40%. So maybe Dingy can pick up from there and see how going forward, how it will look like the tourism map in Asia will look like.
Yeah, well, China will still remain the largest outbound country. It's already at the 100 million level, and it is probably going to go to about like 140 million outbound. But if you look at that number compared to the size of the population, that's only a very small percentage, less than 10% of the population of China itself, which is now gravitating towards 1.4 billion. And so the potential for outbound is huge. But internally, because I said that, China is moving towards a new economic model of internal consumption. So domestic tourism is going to be huge. And I think the last time I went to China was 3 years. That number was already at 1.6 billion internal movements. So and it's all, tourism is measured by person trips. And if you figure that everyone makes at least 2 trips a year because of the number of holidays and family reunion and so forth, I think you're probably going to be looking at like 3.5 billion people moving internally in China itself. And while it is true in a sense that internal tourism does not create more export income, what it does, it more fairly distributes revenue around the country from urban areas into the suburban areas. And from the suburban areas, the farmers who really want to see the cities, it creates a sort of a dynamism, which then leads rise to the growth of enterprise, service-based enterprises. I said the second thing that, or the first thing actually, is to emphasize service-based industries. That is now growing 3 times faster than any of the things that dealt with manufacturing or construction. And the big fear, of course, is that production, service-based industries don't create the same amount of productivity, or wealth. But on the other hand, because of the inefficiencies of services, it does create jobs, which for China is extremely important. Unemployment leads to instability and revolution.
But one thing about the efficiency side, I have to give a lot of credit to the China transportation system.
Yes.
I was in China just a couple of months ago, and when you talk about the huge movement of people, actually it's basically surrounding around the Chinese New Year.
Yes.
The what we call the May Day, the Asian version of the Labor Day.
Sure. And around the national
Moon
holiday.
Festival, and also the National Day.
Yeah, sure.
And I found out the transportation, the high-speed train is really the people
really,
mover.
you're right.
They did such a good job, and it's getting, it was very chaotic.
Yes.
You talk about 5-7 years ago, and now it's pretty well managed, and it's amazing how they did it.
I know, because I used to have to fly from, say, Beijing to Tianjin, which would be like about an hour's flight or something.
Oh, yeah.
Now I take a bullet train, right?
50
I
minutes.
get there, not
45
even
minutes,
that,
yeah.
about 40 minutes to get. But the thing is that what I said earlier had to do with the leapfrogging, that when the China doors opened, they were buying a lot of technology. They didn't have to invent their own. And they were able to study the best systems in Germany, the best systems in Japan. And tourism provides that incentive, right, to create more efficient transportation systems, plus the sheer size of population. I'll tell you, you don't want to be anywhere near Shanghai when the Moon Festival comes around, because it's a home holiday when millions of Taiwanese who have business in mainland China, all trying to get home and reunite with their families. If you were trying to faint at the train terminal, you couldn't, because there are people pressing all 4 sides. You couldn't fall down. There's no way. It's just, when you deal with numbers like that, you need efficiencies.
Actually, now it's getting a lot better, because I still remember a couple of years ago when they have an incident that people were so jammed up in Shanghai, the waterfront area, people are stepping on people and people got killed.
Sure.
And also, the same situation also happened in Hong Kong, the Lang Kwei Fong, when they have one of those, I think either the Thanksgiving or the Halloween, that they have the crowd control wasn't in place.
Yes.
So I guess every city, every country, they have to learn the hard way.
Sure. Well,
and when there's an incident, they kind of like wake up, and then some people lost their job, somebody get fired, and then they take care of it.
No, you're right. See, this is where, again, service education comes in. You can't just deal in numbers. You also have to deal with crowd control and so forth. and you can learn from, well, if I really want to learn how to control a crowd, I don't go to a university. I go to Disneyland to learn how they do it.
Oh, yeah.
Or Disney World. And it's true. I don't know how often I've mentioned the crowd control system they've used at Disney World. And you know, how you disperse a crowd, how you parcel out those tickets to the most popular rides and so forth. And I made that very same observation the first time I was invited to a government-built hotel in Beijing, the International Hotel. It was terrible. I mean, I couldn't believe how bad a hotel could be. Physically, it was beautiful, but the service side was failing. They didn't know how to control the crowds at breakfast time. So everybody was fighting for plates or fighting to get coffee. The lines, there was no beginning, no end at the line. Finally, I had to pull the managers over because there was still a great deal of respect for anything I had to say. And I talked to the government people who own the hotel. I said, look, this is what you need to do. And I cite some of the Disney examples.
When you have, it doesn't make a difference when you have a government-run entity. It seems to face the same issue.
Yes.
Because they are afraid to make decisions.
Sure.
They are afraid. So if they follow the 10 rules that they have to do, and does not deal with, they will keep the job, even though there's a major screw up.
Yeah, that was the
problem.
Iron Rice Bowl policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no matter what. In fact, there was a disincentive to do more.
No, yes.
If you were, say, a eager beaver, a model worker, remember they used to call them model workers, the ones that did the best job? The others would pull you back, so why are you showing off? Why are you making the rest of it look bad? You know, you are breaking our rice bowl.
Yeah.
And so
Didn't you maybe a follow-up on, you talk about when you went back, you talked to investors in Hong Kong, and then they have up to $3 billion they want to invest in China, and you did mention that they do not really want to just, the Chinese side doesn't really want you to just bring me money, to bring your own management. They also
That's right.
want you to teach them
Yes.
how to, just like you want to teach someone how to fish, so they don't have to
Exactly.
count on you. So can you share with us your experience on that?
That was exactly the point, is that we were exploited in the past. You know, if you really want to understand a country like China, you have to understand its history. Not only its, you know, its distant history, but the history that took place in the last 50 or 60 years. And they said, if you bring your money and you build a factory or you build a hotel, we want you to teach us how to run it ourselves. And while it is true that you can teach them to run it, there was nothing difficult about setting up training courses, both here in Hawaii, where we could bring in some of the more senior people, or taking our lessons to China and giving lectures there. That's the easy part. But when you talk about how you do something, and the people that you are talking to have never had the experience, never had the international experience, it's very difficult for them to understand how that works. I'll give you one example is that I lectured at a new university in Shandong province. It's a tourism college, 10 huge building, only one field of study, tourism. And the lecture room was packed. I was there on a UN, WTO project. So, but I had one free afternoon, and they said, "Will you please do us the favor? We have this new university. We'd love to hear a lecture." So I talked to students, and they were so polite. They were so eager to learn. The room was packed. They were sitting on the stairs, or even listening under the window. I left a little bit of time for question and answer, and those kids were prepared. They were so smart. I mean, they listened. Even though it had to be translated in some instance. One girl says, you talk about marketing. Said, that is very important to us, marketing. We think we understand marketing. I said, what do you understand? Says, well, if we build it, they will come. We watch the movie too. But we build it, they don't come.
Remember the days that we always, say, China build beautiful structures,
Sure.
hotels.
Yeah.
That's the hardware side.
Yeah, yeah,
But
right.
they always have problem with
Yeah.
the software, the upkeep,
Yeah.
the people side.
Yeah.
So how do you see?
Yeah, so anyway, so I answered that question. I said, look, if you build, you develop a beautiful city and no one wants to come and visit, I said, who do you blame? Do you blame the person who made the investment and the development, or do you blame the customer? And he said, well, it's the customer's fault for not coming. I said, no, see, this is where you must understand what we mean by marketing. It means that you built the wrong product or you used the wrong kind of program. You did not provide enough incentives. And so I gave them a lot of examples. And I really enjoyed that particular question because that was the mentality. We are here. You should want to come. We don't have to do anything because everyone's interested in China.
Fast forward the last 50, 60 years, China has,
Yeah.
Like you said, was in turmoil after the Second World War.
Yes.
And then I still remember the day when I was in Hong Kong in the 50s and 60s, my parents had to send food
Yes,
and money,
yes.
oil,
I had relatives in
sewing
China, so
machine
I
and
know.
all this stuff
Yeah,
to China. And then now, fast forward 30, 40 years later, and the world has changed.
Yes.
And the change sometimes, from the American point of view, they felt that China does not play the kind of ball game we want them to play, and it presents some challenge from time to time.
Sure.
So how do you see people coming to America? Sometimes I feel the Chinese does understand American a little bit better than American understood Chinese. So you feel the
Well,
more tourism on
Yeah.
both sides of the Pacific may help
well,
understand each other a little better besides going to the shopping mall. I mean,
oh, sure. But see, it's not just China. When it comes to things that happen in other countries, we only know from we have exposure to television, the internet, and certainly the newspaper and so forth, but we don't really truly understand how these countries are. They understand how we operate much more. Because they do learn, in their teaching, what other cultures are like, but we don't. We only understand on a very shallow level, whereas they have a great depth. I have been a consultant in countries in Europe as well as in Asia. And in Norway, where I was consulting to a large Norwegian hotel chain, when I sat next to ordinary people at the table, they were talking about American politics. They understood everything that was going on in America. They track our elections. They track our policies. The average American has no idea what Chinese policies are. China has always, after being exploited for those years from the mid-1800s onwards, and then being forced to concede, say, the Hong Kong to Great Britain and so forth, the Chinese have now invented their own rules. It says, you want to invest in our country, you play by our rules. You better understand that that our rules will, even if we borrow them from some other countries, they will have Chinese characteristics. Deng Xiaoping said that. We will do everything with Chinese characteristics. But how many people know what Chinese characteristics are?
well, even though Hawaii, we always pride ourselves, say we have a huge Asian population. But,
Yes.
But I think Hawaii knows probably Japan better than most of the states in the union because of the fact that we have a huge Japanese population and we
Sure.
have 1.4, 1.5 million visitors.
Yes.
But besides Japan, maybe they know a little bit about Philippines because of the large Filipino.
Sure.
But I talked to the ordinary Chinese,
Yeah.
and American-born Chinese. A lot of them, they really have difficult time
Oh, yeah.
understanding. In fact, they have a difficult time even finding their relative that is like 2 generations away.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I see that challenge. When we talk about U.S.-China relationship,
Sure.
I think that is a major challenge. Not understanding each other where they are coming from.
Oh, yeah. 2 Chinese, one from the west, one from the east. it is still like you might as well be a European talking to to an Asian. There is that much difference. The thing is that those ties with the changing of generations and the loss of the use of language. For example, I grew up speaking Chinese. In fact, I spoke Chinese before I ever spoke English. And so and I was still first generation born in this country, so I have a deeper understanding, say, than any of my nieces and nephews,
Okay.
who are now two
Okay,
generations
Benji,
removed,
we have to
right?
take a break right now.
Okay.
So we'll be back. Asian in Review. This is Johnson Choi, the host, and Dean Chuck Chi, my guest today.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, 25 talk shows by 25 dedicated hosts every week, helping us to explore and understand the issues and events in and affecting our state. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, this is Reg Baker. I'm the host of Business in Hawaii. We air every Thursday at 2 o'clock on thinktechhawaii.com. We broadcast from the ThinkTech studios in downtown Honolulu, and we talk about positive and successful companies in Hawaii. People that have been successful despite the obstacles. They all have a good story to tell. Hopefully we'll see you on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Aloha.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on Think Tech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
This time.
Think Tech Hawaii.
Yeah.
This is Asian Review. This is Johnson Choi, the host, and my guest today is Chuck YT. Let's kind of switch gear to another area of great interest is the entertainment field. Now the Hollywood, a lot of the blockbuster, half of the take in terms of the ticket sales, almost close to half of the take are from China now.
Yes.
And I noticed there are also China major investors like Mr. Wang is also buying up major studios.
Sure.
And how do you see this trend will continue?
It is going to continue. Yeah, because I said, the China's emphasis was on moving towards service enterprises because that is growing 3 times faster, and they have to. There's still a lot of unproductive, state-owned enterprises they need to get rid of, and I'm very proud that one of my Zhu Wenxi, who shared the same surname, when he was the finance minister, he was able to get rid of a lot of the bad factories and so forth, but there's still too many. Once he retired, so you cannot look to, first of all, China's moving towards value addition, but it's value addition in terms of services, and entertainment is one of those areas. There are actually 4 or 5 areas, right? Education is one, healthcare is another, tourism, travel and tourism, entertainment, financial services, personal wealth building. And so, yeah, the few years, not that many years ago, China filmmaking was always kind of big, but it was all internal. Now they're buying Hollywood. And the world's biggest studio is now in China, in Hengding, province in Dongyuan, and which is located in Xizang province, built on 330 hectares of land, where they built a replica of the imperial city. They have created so many things that where even Hong Kong companies are now coming in to do, serial taping and so forth. And they're buying a lot of the technology and the software expertise from Hollywood as well. And you were right. As the economy has started to slow down, people need alternative forms of entertainment. Movies were always kind of big, but now they've gotten bigger. It parallels the 1920s and 30s once we had the Great Recession, 1929 and so forth. Yeah, what did people go? I remember our TIM students did a TIM night based on Hollywood in the 1930s, and it was really about entertainment at the Great Depression. People went to movies because it was a cheap admission to lose yourself, forget your troubles, and to be able to dream. And for the average Chinese, that is the case. They go to movies because the tickets are inexpensive, cheapest entertainment you can buy. You don't go to nightclubs, I mean, if you don't have money, but you can go to the movies. But China is looking to create blockbusters that they can also export, not just movies that will have internal appeal. The ticket sales, as you rightly call it, has jumped in last year. I mean, 2 years ago, it was moving up like 10%, then 40%. Now it's over 50%.
But you also have to, some people have to know that China one-child policy.
Yes.
Now they move into two-child
Right,
policy.
right.
With the one-child policy, you have the parents supporting the little dragon.
Sure.
And
yeah.
then you
the
have
little
the
emperors that we saw.
You have the grandparents.
Yeah,
So
right.
actually nowadays, the kid in China has a lot of disposable income.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons when they did the research on the outbound tourists.
Yeah.
The biggest spender for Chinese coming to America is actually between age 18 and 40.
Sure.
And American usually older.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are spending the parents and the grandparents' money.
Sure.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so it's a slightly different. So, and also we also touch on like aging population in Asia.
Sure.
So how does that impact the long-term planning process for the China government and also other economies in Asia?
Yeah, huge impact. 2 years ago, I was invited to do a paper at the International Taipei Tourism Fair exhibition, and my subject was on the silver market. And I said, it is no longer just a tidal wave, it is actually a tsunami. China's population is aging very quickly, as it's South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore. And last year, in 2015, for the first time, the working age population in China actually dropped. And so, as you look at an aging population, they are going to need some kind of assisted living. And we are, with several of the state legislators and a member of the city council, I won't mention the names, but they asked me to come up with a concept paper.
You talk about here or you talk about
No,
China?
but talk about here.
Yeah,
But it has something with China.
I see.
Well, China is now building, and there is an architectural firm, Wimley, Allison, Tong and Gu, that the Singapore office is now developing assisted living facilities. These are very large, built on like 60 acres of land and so forth, and they are going to take in large numbers of people who will be retiring. Well, they can build the hardware, but they don't know where to find the management. So
And the staff, the
yeah.
right type of staff that
Yeah,
can take care of the
exactly right. So I was aware of an agreement that was signed between China and the U.S. for 2016 being the year of tourism. And there are 5 provisions. One is, of course, the export of services to trying to create something of economic value. And I said, well, Hawaii doesn't have a lot of things, but one of the things we can export is, education. So I said, what if we come with a new program? There are some very excellent programs on the mainland, but what if we create a program that takes in healthcare, wellness, social work, gerontology, and hospitality services? Because the people who are aging and retiring are healthy. They're on the tennis court, even if they're 70 years old, they're playing bridge or going to gymnasium. So they want more hospitality services. So if we create this as a training program with a heavy dose of finance thrown in and so forth, this is a program that I think we can sell to China.
Great. Thank you, Chuck, for coming to be my guest today. And
Thank you for inviting me.
And we hope that Hawaii can play a role in Asia and continue our influence over there. So
I would agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, thank you.